Well, it must be time. Is it recording? Oh, great.
Yeah, are we rolling?
Are we rolling? I don't even know. It must be time for another deep dive, Wesley.
Deep dive, baby.
Come on. I brought my swim trunks. So, Wesley, let me get this straight. We're week 2 of LoveHate.
LoveHate.
And, you know, the world around me doesn't seem any more loving since we've started talking about this, which means more people haven't watched this. So I'm a little disappointed, but that's okay. The point being, we're talking about how to, shift, right? From I'm just going to react to everything. I'm just going to be all my first impressions, evaluation of everything, I'm going to react. But now I'm going to say, can I replace the filter with love? Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Jen talked about on Monday the filters that are in our life, right? Like kind of like an Instagram or a Snap filter.
Tennessee or Nashville.
Nashville,
Nashville's
yes.
a good filter.
Henderson, I was always an X Pro 2 guy when Instagram first came out, and then I realized that I'm not an artist.
Love how it gets rid of my blemishes. That's my favorite. It's my favorite thing about it. But so there is a way, to take that analogy and say, could I have a better filter that sees people, and not just people that are easy to like? You know, not just people that I think are sexy, interesting, will advance me in life, but the filter allows me to even look at enemies and people that have hurt me with love. That's different. That's getting rid of the blemishes on the face, right? Yeah.
Or people that I've been told that are in a different tribe, you know. These are, I
right,
totally
they're not like
that.
me, us versus them, which is everything we're hearing right now. Absolutely.
Right, exactly.
So this is what I understand. Galatians chapter 6, verse 2 was a core thing that Jen talked about,
This is
right?
where we should start today.
So Galatians 6:2 says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ.
Yeah.
So Wesley,
let's break this down.
Yeah,
here.
what's the law of Christ?
Oh, that's
what
a
is
great
that?
question.
I didn't know there was a law of Christ. I thought he was free love, baby. What's that about?
Deep dive. So we're going a little deeper. The word law for us is a word that we have a very specific idea about, right?
Bad word.
It's a code of rules that you follow or you get in trouble, right?
And like Pirates of the Caribbean, they're more like guidelines.
They're more like
right?
guidelines. Yes.
Exactly.
In the Paul, the guy who wrote this, in his mind, a law was sort of a way to order your life, right? So that you would bring about goodness and faith and mercy and love. Right?
Yeah, it's a rule of your living. I love that. That is really good.
Yeah.
So he says that the way we fulfill this law that Christ had, this rule of life that Christ had, is by carrying each other's burdens. Interesting.
That's great language, isn't it?
Yeah, because, they're not my burdens. So why would I carry them?
Well, I'm only laughing because, when you grew up and your chores got done, but your siblings' chores did not get done.
Yep.
And your mom asked why the siblings' chores didn't get done, you would say,
they're not my chores.
Not
my burden, right?
Right?
Well, this is interesting because we have a large body of people right now asking us to hear their burdens.
We do.
And it's interesting. It's very
you say us, you mean white people.
I do. I really, and asking us to hear them. And it's interesting. It's it's not my burden, is it? And I think it's interesting to look at that, also to look at it from the other angle, which is to say, are there other groups of people asking for us to see their burden? And I don't really have to.
Yeah.
I am taken back by this season that we've come out of to be able to say, what does it mean to listen right now? And to really say, there are needs around me I never knew existed. There are injustices around me I didn't know were there. And I could help carry a burden here because too many for too long have maybe carried it alone.
Well, and let's talk about law of Christ, that specific verbiage.
Love this.
That's not meant to be ambiguous. Paul was talking about what Jesus says earlier in the story of Jesus, right?
Oh,
He says,
interesting.
what is the law of Jesus? What's the law of Christ?
Yes.
It's that you would love one another as I have loved you.
You know, this happens all the time, because even James chapter 2 verse 8 says, if you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing right. I mean, every Christian, every early Christian knew there was one rule of Jesus. One rule. Love one another as I loved. And it's not sentimental, because Jesus, how did he love us? Fully, sacrificially, and he carried burdens that weren't his own.
I'm so glad you say that. So, because we have a responsibility to other people in our lives and in our societies and in our cities and in our towns and in our schools.
Yep. And as you said, even siblings in our homes.
Yes,
right? Absolutely.
But we live in Western culture. Now, we won't go on a huge history lesson here, but one of the hallmarks of Western culture is individualism. Yeah, it's a hyper focus on the individual, their rights and liberties and responsibilities, and that's not all bad, by the way. We have ushered in a whole new understanding for things like spiritual gifts into the church. I think we've really contributed that. Mm-hmm. But with that, we've lost the understanding that we have a responsibility to others. I say it this way: from merging in traffic to caring for marginalized peoples. We have a responsibility to the people in our lives.
Why do you gotta bring up my driving?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
It's true, because I'm like, get out of my way, and my getting there quicker is what's important.
That's the priority.
And what if someone else is trying to get somewhere even more important? I mean, it is that if I can, I've heard it said like this: how I do anything is how I do everything. And that is huge. In traffic, home, and dealing with people saying, hear my story, and we're like, I don't need to hear your story, right? And I do this with people. We all do this. Here's what I want to ask then, Wesley. I'm a normal dude. I'm a normal person trying to get better. I want to fulfill the law of Christ. I want to obey this royal law, the love one another as I've loved you. But I'm a normal dude, and I'm living my life. Student, I go to school. I'm living, it's summer. How do I do this? How do I make the summer matter, and fulfill this? Like, is there a way? Is there practical things I can do?
So we're talking about next steps here. And I think the first one is just pause. You were saying before we turned on the camera, and I thought it was so good, that we talk a lot about meditation and solitude and silence.
Which feel boring and churchy, Yeah.
They seem, and even almost like not Jesus-y at some points.
Yeah, right.
But you also, what you said something about like that the way things are going right now is proving that we need them more than ever.
Yeah, I think what happens is we often Christians teach, go have some solitude, go have silence, meditate, pray a lot. And a lot of us think that's a luxury. Like, boy, that's for people who have nothing else to do. I've got things to accomplish. But here's the truth. Jesus himself did this. Mark chapter 135. Very early in the morning, meaning before the sun was up, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, went off to a solitary place where he prayed. And you wonder then why that next day, when hundreds of people who were dirty and sick and weird and demon-possessed, they would bother him all day long, and he would never react to them. He was never anxious with them. He was never mean with them. He never flew off the handle. And I think it's because in the morning, he was with God alone. And I think we don't just tell you. I mean, we did Trinity sessions started this summer. If we really marched through the beginning of summer, we did these Trinity things. And they taught a lot about solitude, silence, meditation, study. And those all seem like boring words until you need help becoming a non-anxious presence. And then the next thing you know, you go, hey, everyone's expecting me to be a non-reactive person, but no one's teaching me how to become that kind of person. That is what we're saying. We don't just practice meditation because it's cool and yoga's neat. And we don't just practice solitude and silence because it's a neat thing that Yoda would do too. No, we do it because it's one of the only tangible ways we know to become a less reactive, non-anxious presence in the world, which is why it's a discipline. We have to keep doing it. I mentioned this too brashly at the end of last week's deep dive, James 1:19. Dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to be angry. Hey, I love the verse. I've memorized the verse. It helps me. But let's be honest, how do I become that kind of person? Through solitude, silence, removing yourself from the noise, shutting off your feed.
Or your phone.
Yeah, right. Shutting it all off and being with the Father. That is how Jesus did it, and that's the only way we'll be able to do it. That's one way, is I've got to really pause. I've got to figure out what pause looks like in my life to become a non-reactive person, right?
Yeah.
What else?
I think the next thing, we really have to look at the filters on our lives. So we talked about this, Jen talked about this, and so often the filter that colors every interaction with other people is anger or fear or anxiety or depression or, name it. And what Jen asked us to do is start to move to a place where love could be the filter in our lives. You said it well, like not being an anxious presence.
Right.
But we have to move away, I think, from reactivity.
Yep. And how I see people.
Correct.
In immediate reactions.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I do this positive ways and negative ways. When someone is cute to us, we certainly look at them differently and treat them differently, don't we?
Yeah.
And I've always said this, it always is the creepiest thing I've ever said on camera, but I'll keep saying it, is if only we could have the same mindset we have when we're trying to date somebody with everybody. Because we overlook a bunch of crud with people when we find them attractive. And when we're trying to get something from that relationship. And if only, here's the thing, you know how to do this. I know how to do this. If only you could do that to people who are different than you. If only I could apply that. If you can do it with them, where else could you do it? Yep. And I know that sounds weird. I'm not saying go flirt with the waitress. I'm just saying...
Yeah, we're not saying pursue everyone sexually.
No, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. That's creepy, which is why I'm afraid to say it. But here's the truth. I know how to shut down the part of me that's critical.
That's true.
And it's a muscle, and you can use it more and more and more.
But here's what happens, Garrett.
Tell me.
Is we overlook those things, and then we get burned, and then we become jaded and cynical. And that's, I think, where those filters come from.
Stop reading my diary. You're right. You're absolutely...
Gosh, right?
Because the filter exists to protect me. It's a layer to protect me. Interesting. That's right. And that's not what love does.
No,
love is way more okay with... Even if I'm wounded, right?
Right. Love is so much more expensive than we think it is. Mm-hmm. I think of the Good Samaritan, the story of the guy who finds a guy beaten up and left for dead. Mm-hmm. And what does he do? And by the way, a different ethnicity. It's a person of a different race and a different color.
By his own people, he shouldn't be allowed to touch and mess with this guy.
Shouldn't, he should be leaving this guy for dead. Mm-hmm. Yet he picks him up, puts him on his donkey, because it's a really old story, takes him to a hotel where he would, it would be like taking him to the hospital.
Right.
And then he gave them money and said, take care of him. I'll be back. Any bill he gets, I will take care of, I'll pay for. Love is expensive. Love is costly.
That's right.
And we're not advocating for reckless, throwing of your heart to anybody who might take advantage or trample you.
Right.
What we are saying is there are people in your lives who need you to see them through the filter of love.
Yeah.
Might be your mom, might be your sister, might be your dad, might be...
Yeah, to give them the same benefit that I give someone that I find interesting.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's so good, man.
That's it. So examine those filters. That's what we mean. I think lastly, if we wanted to take a real risky next step, is to evaluate and make a list of all of the places in our life. Now, this is why solitude and prayer and meditation are so important, because it makes space in our lives for Jesus to speak and us to obey.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I got to slow down enough to do that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
So make a list of all the people and situations in your life that God is asking you to move from hate to love. That may be quiet hate. It may be hate you've never expressed or told anyone about. It may be loud hate. But where do you need to move from hate to love?
Wes, I love the deep dive with you. I really do. I think if there's anything else to say, it would be, you and I don't say all of this because we've got it nailed. We say it because we are experienced at failing in it. Right? True. And I think what we hope younger and younger people hear earlier on than it took us to get is you could change someone's life by your words. We talked about that last week. We could change people's lives by the way we see them now. We could change people's lives by the way we see them now. There is a way to not react to everything, and including social media posts, and instead look at it with a loving filter. And I need these steps. It's interesting just hearing you say them because I need to actually do them.
Oh my gosh. How many times over the last couple of weeks with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, protesting
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor, we have jumped to assuming the worst about the person who opposes us,
right,
and forgot that is just another person. That
And yes,
we're not understanding with them, regardless of political viewpoint, whatever.
and quite frankly, violence is begetting more violence, and we have to figure out how to offer a new path. And I think that's what this is.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks for deep diving with us.
Thanks, guys.